Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, episode 74 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Great to have you in today or tonight or yesterday or tomorrow or in the morning, whatever time you're listening. Do appreciate that. Or watching on the audio side. We have a lot to talk. I know I say that every week. We have a lot to talk about this week, and I'm all revved up, ready to go, watching the Major League Baseball playoffs, a little bit of my cousin Vinny mixed in there as well. So let me introduce, my name is Jim, by the way. Let me introduce my former coach, friend and co-host, professional evaluator, successful business owner, Jake Epstein.
Good to be here, Jim. Best time of year.
You're revved up and ready to go like me, huh? You ready, Freddie? We have a big show here.
Yeah, let's go.
We got 2 pages of script today. By the way, speaking of my cousin Vinny, every time that Joey Gallo went to the plate for the Yankees, every time I would say to myself in my head, Jerry Callo? No, Jerry Gallo. every fucking time. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it out of my head. By the way, congrats to you and your family, your dad. You guys are featured in a Deadspin article this week about the time that your father beat the shit out of Reggie Jackson in the clubhouse when he was with the Oakland Athletics. I did reach out to the author on Twitter of that article, and he sends his well wishes to you and your father. I didn't know this, but he actually talked to your father. But it was a well-written article. I invite everybody to try and read that on Deadspin if they get a chance.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I remember when that first came out. I heard from all these random people, I had never, and it's funny. I don't know if I ever told the story. There was I believe it happened in Texas, and my dad, it was a couple years after that. So that was probably 1972. He did get traded after that year because of that fight. Because they won the World Series. He led that team in home runs that year. And sure enough, Finley shipped him out just like he said he would. And so my dad's out of baseball, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later. And he's in Texas doing business. And the Yankees are in town. So all those guys play for the Yankees now, right? Catfish is with the Yankees, Reggie's with the Yankees. And there are probably other guys I'm not thinking about right now. So they go in there and they invite my dad into the clubhouse and, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, hey, I want to show you something. And he's like, oh, what is it? And they pulled back like a carpet, like a rug. And underneath the rug was a chalk outline of where Reggie was laid out on the ground because it was the same locker room. It was the visiting locker room in Texas. And I always thought that was funny. I wonder how long that chalk outline was really there.
Yeah. So
that's just good baseball, funny guys.
You know all the by the way, the author, I looked him up here and I forgot his name when I messaged him on Twitter. His name, and I want to give him credit, Jason Turbo. He wrote the article on Deadspin. So again, I invite everybody to check that. It's a really fascinating piece of writing. Now, what is your dad's side? Did you ever get Reggie Jackson's side when you met him? I'm just curious.
No, they were always very cordial. So as a kid, when I would see him, they were, you wouldn't know, hey, how's it going? They always talked about hunting, and my dad's like, Reggie, you hunt now? Like that. Right. That was kind of always a weird thing. But no, I never knew that until I was older, and I heard stories about it from my dad's friends and teammates. Yeah. And then when that article came out, it was like the true story. Like I heard the kind of the PG version of it. Yeah. That my dad told me, and then this was more the version that I think those guys that also were interviewed gave to him. So yeah.
Well, again, I invite everybody to check out that article on Deadspin. It is the fight detailing between Mike Epstein, Jake's father, and of course Reggie Jackson. Apparently they are now, or were, friends. Maybe they still are.
Yeah. No, they are. Yeah, there's always heated stuff. I think Reggie was in a few fights that year. Sal Bando, the captain of that team, and Reggie often got into it.
Billy Martin with the Yankees. Maybe it's just Reggie. Maybe it's not. Man,
he's the straw.
He's the straw that stirs the old drink. By the way, that is the most overused cliche in all of sports by announcers now. Everybody uses it across every sport. He's the straw that stirs the. Oh, enough already with that cliche. Switching gears, Bryce Harper. Now he's kind of the straw that stirs a drink, I'd say, right? That's fair to say. Before I bring him up, though, so I lost my my quarterback, Russell Wilson, on Thursday night for 6 to 8 weeks, my starting quarterback in fantasy football. But luckily for me, though, I know how to draft, and I have an abundance, an embarrassment of riches, if you will, my skill position players. A lot of good wide receivers, a couple of good running backs. I'm one, I like to build from within, right? I like to build and develop my players. Now, I like to build and draft correctly. I don't do many trades in fantasy football. And if I was running an organization, I probably wouldn't do too many trades either. I still kind of cringe when teams trade away their top prospects. I understand, of course, that those top prospects don't always turn out to be big leaguers, but nevertheless, about Bryce Harper and how does this connect to him? So the end of the regular season for the Phillies, he spoke to the media and he made some great quotes and he made some great points. And he talked about how the Phillies, he feels, have to build from within. He would know coming up with the Nationals when it came up, they were building from within. And he talked about how the 1 year big money, 2 year big money contracts just aren't going to work. He talked about having a solid farm system and building from within. Is he right? I think he is, but is he going down the right avenue when he talks about that? Is that how organizations should go, or should they kind of do what Alex Anthopoulos does with the Blue Jays now, of course, with the Braves in, I don't know, maybe going for the gold and selling away some prospects and maybe going out and signing those big name free agents?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation in the market for sure. I think the Dodgers had a pretty good farm system and had some homegrown guys, and then boom, they can all of a sudden get a guy like, Turner and Scherzer, and they had to give up really good prospects. Well, if you don't have prospects, then you're not going to get Scherzer and you're not going to get Turner. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing more valuable than a strong farm system, because you can hopefully some of those guys, will make it and make an impact on your big league roster, but they can also be used to get people to win now. And you have to understand the situation of where your team is.
Yeah.
And if you're close, like the Dodgers are like, we got to strike while it's hot, man. We had a great team last year. We had a great run. We're doing well. The Giants are killing it. Hey, if we can get Scherzer and Turner, then we'll give people up. And if I'm not mistaken, Scherzer's under contract, I think, for quite a while.
That's Trey Turner. Scherzer's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, but there's
so
still a chance he may resign there.
Yeah, and Scherzer's locked up, right? So you're going to get a couple good years out of him.
Turner,
he's getting older, but
Turner.
So you're getting. Yes, you gave up a couple of prospects, but I mean, you're getting one of the top 5 starters in all of Major League Baseball, and a guy with grit and postseason experience. So yeah, nothing's wrong with building within, and that starts with is that player development, or is that the draft? Is that scouting?
Right.
A lot of it's scouting and being able to pay a lot of those international prospects. I was amazed at how many, just watching the playoff teams today, how many international players are dominating these rosters, especially the White Sox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Randy
Rosarino
too, of course.
Yeah.
They're the gold
there's
standard,
so many Cuban guys, but there's a lot of international. You got G-Man, right? I mean, they're not just Latin American players. So it's where it's at.
Well, the Rays and the Dodgers, pool, they're the gold standard though of player development and drafting and doing things the right way, building from within. I mean, even the Dodgers, who traded away all those prospects to get Scherzer and Turner, did it really make a dent in their farm system? And they also traded away Verdugo a couple of years ago. Did that really make a dent in their farm system? I would love to know, because I don't know the answer. I would love to know what they do consistently to be able to have the farm system that other teams just don't have when they go through a rebuilding process.
Yeah, like it takes. I mean, how are the Orioles just not with the amount of top draft picks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're gonna get another one. Or the Pirates. You know, it's like what were they missing?
You can make a case for the Padres too right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the Padres had Tatis.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Renfroe. Mm-hmm. They traded him away. They traded away Actually, I think Turner.
They traded away Trey Turner to the Nationals. Yeah,
he was. Yeah, that's where Turner came from too. So yeah,
and that was the year that the Padres were going for it all in 2015 when they did trade Turner.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think you can go wrong with a strong farm system. I think that's your foundation. If you're going to build a house and that's going to stand for 5, 6, 7 years, your organization being successful, it's going to have to stand on the pillars of those of that farm system.
Yeah. Some other Bryce Harper quotes though that I found today that you might like, just to give you a smile. He says, quote unquote, "I'm not trying to fit in with nobody. I'm just me." All right. I like that one. Here's one I really like. Quote unquote.
Grammar's not very good.
Huh? Grammar. Yeah, grammar. The other one, I eat ice cream all the time. So look, it's okay to eat ice cream all the time. Then if he does it and he's in great shape, we all can do it. I only eat ice cream like once a week though.
Yeah.
I went to school, but nobody really noticed me. I just came to school, didn't dress up or anything, just a ghost. I just worked out and went out to the field and went the baseball route. That's how I've always been my whole life.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing, kids.
No. Stayed out of trouble too.
You don't have to go to parties and, drink adult beverages. You can do the Bryce Harper route. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
You don't have to be a baseball player. You can, play the saxophone like I wanted to until my dad threatened to choke me with it because I was so bad at it. I can squat 405 pounds. I'm proud of that. That's one of my favorites. Now, that's what Bryce and I have in common, although he doesn't have a torn quad. I do. But we have that in common, him and I. So see, him and I are close. We have more in common than we both probably
than most people.
I agree. I love working hard. I think people know that. Hey, yeah, I agree. I do. I feel bad for him that they didn't make the Phillies didn't make the postseason this year, and that he had an MVP type season. Do I think he's the MVP? I said last week probably not because they didn't make the postseason, and he went 0 for 11 against Atlanta in that final week. But I'm starting to sway towards maybe giving him the MVP. Freddie Freeman, who by the way is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and he is going to be featured on our mechanical breakdown series of our top 10 free agents coming up in November. But our topic today, college recruiting myths. We'll get to that here in just a couple of moments. Eddie Robinson passed away, by the way, this week. Do you have any comments about that? He was 100 years old, player, scout, executive from the 1940s to the 80s, 40 plus years in baseball. Did you ever run into him? I'm sure your dad did.
Yeah, my dad probably did. No, I didn't ever run into him, but that's a legendary guy that, we lost. That lived a legendary life, right?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. 40 years in baseball. I wonder what he would
That'll
think
drive anybody crazy.
I agree. But he lived till 100. So he outlived everybody. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to subscribe to our show. Apple, Google, Spotify, and our YouTube page, The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcasts, of course, for new episodes every week, archived episodes and clips. I want to bring up something here too. I found this little chart interesting. This is from the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness, as they say. 2 strike hitters this season. This is in 2021, the regular season. I'm going to give you a list here, and people watching on the YouTube side, you can see the graphic. Yuli Gurriel's number 1, not counting the postseason. He's number 1 with the Houston Astros. 290 batting average with 2 strikes. Luis Robert, of the White Sox, 286. He's number 2. Santiago Espinal, or Espinal, however you want to say it. I say Espinal, but okay. With Toronto, 282 batting average with 2 strikes. Kyle Schwarber with the Red Sox and Nationals combined, 253 batting average. And did I say runners? I meant 2 strikes. I didn't mean runners in scoring position if I said that.
2 strikes.
Yes. DJ LeMahieu with the Yankees, 252. Michael Brantley with Houston, 252. LeMahieu is 5th because he has actually less strikeouts than Brantley does. And then it's Rosario, 248 of Cleveland, and then it kind of drops off. Arise of Minnesota, 247. Harold Castro of Detroit, 237. Gavin Sheets of the White Sox, 234. I guess the last 4 hitters, a little bit of a surprise because they're not stars. They're not known as top 10, top 15, top 20 hitters or players for that matter. But those batting average after Brantley, they're kind of low for Or am I just in previous years? Does it really prove the point that strikeouts have really taken over the game here in the last 4 to 5 years, just based off those batting averages?
Yeah, it's hard to say because it's batting average. It's not strikeouts.
Right.
Because with 2 strikes, you could be at an 0-2 count,
Mm-hmm.
or you could be at a 3-2 count.
Yeah.
So that's somewhat misleading. What I would say is the guy's hitting 260. That's
Right.
pretty impressive with 2 strikes. Like 240 seems somewhat. I mean, most of the
So that's
league. I don't
average.
know what was the league average this year. It had to be 250,
It's
right?
right. It was right. Well, no, it was right around like 230.
Was it right? So I
So
mean, we're talking about with 2 strikes, we have guys
yeah.
that have better than the league average,
Yeah.
that are low on that. So actually, that's a surprising stat to me that guys hit that high with 2 strikes, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a testament of their approach. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're more comfortable with 2 strikes. Maybe they're not as antsy. Sometimes people get real excited early in the count, and then they get behind, and then they're like, okay, I just got to put it in play, see it deeper, and then they become better hitters.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's a good approach for some players. But that's I would have thought with I mean, I would say an 0-2 count, a 1-2 count, maybe even a 2-2 count. I would have thought that would have been sub 200 average.
Well, it doesn't have the counts. It only has
2
just the
strikes.
batting average, 2 strike batting averages. Now, Yuli
Yeah.
Gurriel, just to add a little more context, because again, he's number
Yeah.
1 on this list at 290. So Gurriel this season struck
Amazing.
out. So he hit 319, by the way. That's a career high for him. He's getting older and he's still hitting, which is a good sign. We do have a question about a certain player that's getting older from a listener. We'll get to that in a little bit later. But he's 37, Yuli Gurriel, this season. So Yuli struck out this year 68 times as compared to walking 59 times. Does that kind of give you a hint about things, about his approach with 2 strikes, or just his approach in general?
His approach in general. I mean, it shows me like he has a different swing. He swings down a lot more than most guys. Like sometimes he actually swings down. He probably has a negative attack angle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember seeing 1 or 2 in the playoffs last year where I was like, wow, that was like, if you go to my Twitter page, and not that I'm trying to make you go through that whole thing, but there's a Gurriel one, I believe, from the playoffs last year that I put up there in slow motion where it was like all hands. He didn't use his, like, it wasn't a powerful swing. He was just trying to get his hands to the ball, get his barrel to the ball, and he used his hands a lot, and his legs were just pretty passive. Maybe that's a good thing for him. His swing is built for the league now of high fastballs. Like I was just, it's Friday, so sorry, but we were watching, my dad was over, so we were watching the Rays game. We watched a little bit of the Brewers game, and it was amazing. Like all the pitches are at the top of the box. Everything that was 95 miles an hour or more was thrown at the belt, or the belly button. That's just how it was. And guys just swinging under it and swing. But Gurriel's a guy that'll handle that pitch. He starts with his hands really high and he kind of swings down. He swings very flat.
Yeah.
And he's built for that. Now you start changing planes with him and throwing more sinkers and sliders, it'll be a little bit harder for him to be on plane, but he's built for high velocity, high spin rate fastballs at the top of the zone. And maybe the league just kind of came to him, and that's why he had such a good year.
Yeah. Luis Robert, for more context, he struck out 61 times this year, walked 14. His batting average was 338. He had a tremendous year.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Now he only had, which I'm surprised about. He was hurt. That in mind as well. He only had 296 plate appearances though, and 275 at bats. But nevertheless, still
he's got the same build as like Puig, doesn't he? Like
he does.
Super, super big and athletic. What happened to Puig? Was he even in the league this year?
He was. He was with the
Cincinnati
Reds.
still, or
let me check here. Now I'm curious. Let me check here. Yasiel, that's a good comp by you, by the way.
Oh,
they don't call him the best evaluator in the world for nothing. It's a movie I haven't watched in a while. He was with Cincinnati. Went from No, I'm sorry. I don't think he was in the league this year. He wasn't, in fact. His last time he was in the league was with Cleveland in 2019 and then Cincinnati. Actually, he went in that Bauer deal to
Yeah, he was in Cincinnati for the short season, but he didn't play this year.
Yeah, why did he flame out? I'm curious.
Because he's crazy.
He's crazy.
No, he's not crazy. He's what an athlete. That guy. Good Lord.
Okay. So
he can throw and hit. He must have gotten hurt, torn something, because
so he was 8 years
very polarizing.
8 years in the league. I think 6 years. He had 6 years with the Dodgers. Wasn't tendered. Let goes, and he could have been. He was a free agent anyway. Arbitration years were up, and then of course went to Cincinnati, and then was traded to Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know where he is. You know who came out of retirement too? Hanley Ramirez.
I did not know that.
Now that guy had a big leg kick. Remember that time with the Marlins?
Yeah.
He didn't hustle after a ball short, and all the three Marlins fans, they got all upset and angry. Sports talk in Miami went crazy.
Was Hanley there first, or was he in Boston first?
He was there first, then went to Boston. Didn't work out in Boston.
Yeah, he was good with the Marlins though.
PitchCom, we're firing out all topics tonight. PitchCom is what this thing is called. It's a pitch communication device between pitcher and catcher that is coming to the Arizona Fall League this fall. You like, dislike, yay, nay? It'd be tough for the fielders to be clued in on what pitch is coming and how to position themselves defensively. Although, well, no, they won't have analytics. Probably won't anyway, right? It's the Arizona Fall League, but nevertheless.
I don't know. Maybe I like it in college because the college game's so slow getting pitches in.
Mm-hmm.
So anything to speed it up in college, but the pros, the pitchers and catchers are calling it themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get it with the sign stealing, you know, issues that have happened. Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Still got to push a button, right? It's not telepathy.
Right.
The catcher still has to like push something. So if you're going to steal a sign, maybe you can zoom in and see what he's pushing as well. So people, if they're going to cheat, they're going to find a way.
Be sure to email the show, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. By the way, your tweet about Chris Taylor, what do you mean? Can you go further into the elbows and what you meant by that? If you haven't, at Epstein Hitting on Twitter, by the way, for those who don't know what I'm talking about and need a reference.
We're going to talk a lot about that in about 8 days in College Station, Texas for the 2021 coaches training, instructor training and certification. We will talk a ton about elbows. So the elbows control the hands and the hands control the bat head. So if the elbows do something at the wrong time, if they start to change, you know, the relationship between each other and your shoulders and your body, then it creates a lot of problems with the bat head. So most amateur issues related to bat drag or casting or even wrist roll or lack of extension are all determined by what the elbows do earlier in the swing. So if you look at that swing, you can see how quiet his elbows are the first, 30% of his swing during rotation. And because of that, it gave him a chance to deliver the barrel. And that was a good swing and a bad pitch, slider.
Yeah.
Right down the middle.
Right over the plate.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our topic today. Our main topic, college recruiting myths. There's a lot out there. There's a lot out there when I was being recruited. Same thing with you, but now it's more, there's a lot more out there now because obviously with social media and it's just a frenzy. I'm sure now that players are posting on TikTok. I hate TikTok. I really just hate it. TikTok depresses me. I remember seeing ads for that thing in 2016 and being like, this will never take off. I remember seeing ads for it on YouTube and saying to myself, this will never take off. And it's just taking off. I hate it.
What else do you think won't work? Because I'm going to invest in it.
I know. Right. So first myth, and we alluded to it last week on the program. Go back and listen to the archives about camps. Some camps that colleges host, not really showcase camps. Some of them are, they're just out to make money for the program. You've been a college coach before. Can you kind of decipher that myth? Camps, no camps. How can parents figure out if they should send their kid baseball or softball to one of those things?
It's tough. I think the colleges do a much better job now recently within the last 4 or 5 years about, certain camps are fun camps, for kids that are like, 12 and under. And then certain camps are for, recruitable players. And I think that was the big thing, is they can have those recruitable players on campus now, where before it was like, it's got to be called a camp, or it's not a camp, or it's a recruiting thing. So I will tell you, I've worked with a ton of players that are from smaller areas that would not have played in college if they hadn't gone to the college camps and proved themselves and done well and showcased, because they were from small towns. And there's not a lot of recruiters, or they're from a small town and they're playing on a team that's not going to play in front of all the A schools. So in Colorado, they have the big Sparkler softball tournament, for 4th of July. And there's like, I don't know, I'm not for sure on the number, but it's somewhere between like 250 and like 320 teams or something crazy like that come in.
Right.
And the college coaches all come out here, right? But there's only like certain levels or divisions of that tournament where the coaches are going to see players. So if you're not a gold level team, if you're a recruitable 15 and 16-year-old player, but you're not playing in that top division, well, you're just coming to this tournament to play games. It's not a recruiting tournament for you. So if you're that player, you might have to go to Texas A&M to a softball camp in order to be seen. And you better be good. They'll see you. The great part, I remember doing camps at University of Texas baseball years ago. Oh gosh, I mean, Augie Garrido was still there, right? So we're probably talking 12, 15 years ago. And none of the coaches were there. Actually, the pitching coach showed up for one day.
Yeah.
Garrido wasn't there. Tommy Harmon wasn't there. None of the staff coaches were there. Nowadays, especially in softball, all the coaches are there. So that's always one of the things that I ask. If a player says, should I go to this camp? Are the coaches going to be there? Or is it the volunteer assistant? Is it the managers, the student managers that are running it? Sometimes they bring in a full other camp staff of high school coaches from around the area that are running it. It's just on the college field. So, know that I will tell you, Texas A&M softball this year, all of their staff coaches from their head coach on down were at their bigger showcase when they would have, teams come in and practice and play. So if you want to get in front of a coach, that's how you do it. If it's the right, you do have to research the school. You have to see if the coaches are going to be there. You have to talk to people that have gone to those camps before. But if the coaches are there, 100%, that is a really good way for you to be seen and showcase your skills. It doesn't mean you're going to get a scholarship.
Right.
But if you prove yourself and you do well, it doesn't matter if you go to them or they see you in Atlanta somewhere, at a random tournament. No, when these recruiters go to these big tournaments, they're going there to see certain players, certain pitchers most of the time that they're interested in, that are younger. They're probably sophomores.
Yeah.
And then if you catch their eye as a junior infielder, wow, this guy swung the bat really well. I like the way he moves in the field, or she moves, whatever it is. Then it's like, okay, that person gets picked up, but they're typically looking for the diamonds that are out there, the ones that are on all the PBR reports and all that kind of stuff. So as a regular player, on a roster of 35, for the 26 other players that want to play in college that aren't being heavily recruited, they're going to have to go to some of these camps in order to do it. But do your research on it. Some camps, the coaches are there and it's great. They really are looking for players. And some of them are just money makers, and you have to know that. So, that's a big myth. One of the other ones, is.
Well, let me ask you really quickly before we get to the other one. What about showcases? What showcases nowadays are really, really important to get yourself and get your name out there?
Yeah, you got to know your role, right?
And shut your mouth.
Yeah. That's right. So, they have all these showcases, right? The really good players. If you have to pay to go to a showcase, you're not one of those players. Okay. That's just kind of the way it is. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to the showcase, but the top, 50 players in the country, they don't pay to go to those. They go to those events and they're flown in for those events so that the college coaches will come to those events. And if the college coaches come to those events or the scouts come to those events, then they can sell it to everyone else, right? And they can sell it to other people to come to the event. So unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do to be seen. What I always tell players is know what kind of player you are.
Yeah.
You know, players know, teammates know who's the best player on your team, who's the worst player on your team. Okay. Like kids know how they rank up against other players. You know, do you see yourself as a Division I player? Well, maybe. Okay. Maybe is not a great answer. Do you see yourself as a lower Division I player? Yes. Do you see yourself as a high academic Division I player? Yes. Go to a head first showcase.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are super expensive, but you're going to be seen by, you know, the Ivies, you know, the higher academic, you know, schools, you know, on the East Coast, or, you know, even the ones on the West Coast that are just smaller, you know, maybe, you know, 10,000 or less students, but that's where you fit in. That's your deal. Are you a big moose of a guy, right? You're fast, you're big, you're strong. Maybe you're not a great baseball player, but you're a terrific athlete. You'll shine at a showcase.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's kind of what it is. If you're a freakishly athletic human being, big, strong, fast, and you throw the ball hard and they go, wow, I threw, you know, 92 from right field, you know, and he's 14 or he's 15. Wow, he just hit the ball, you know, 94 miles an hour off a tee. Well, that kid may not ever be able to hit a fastball or a breaking ball that moves, but that player that's physically advanced will get the advantage. And so if you're not physically advanced and you are a really good player, that's where you have to go to these different events, or you have to go to their camp, go to the source where you think you can play. I think I can play at, you know, High Point.
Right.
Like that's the league I think I can play at. I'm going to go to those camps, those in the league, and I'm going to showcase myself, and I'm going to get feedback from coaches, you know, and they should be honest with you. The coaches are better than they were. You know, there's not a lot of smoke just because it's so easy to transfer now. And there's so much social media that if, wow, this coach said I was great, and then I never got a phone call from him on signing day, you know, or something like that, that word gets out, right? It's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, you know, it's in the newspaper. So coaches are pretty honest now for the, you know, for the most part, at least the ones that I run in circles with, where it's like, you know what, you're going to be our second line recruits. We have, you know, whatever, 9 players were, 12 players were that are in our first line. Not all 12 of those are going to sign with us. Okay. Some are going to sign with our competitors. Some might go in the MLB draft. Some might not be eligible. So then I have my next tier. You're in that next tier.
Yeah.
I want you to stay in contact. I want to keep watching you play. But know that it's open. And what happens is, you know, people have these myths that, oh my gosh, I'm not verbally committed and I'm a sophomore. Yeah. I'm not verbally committed. I'm a junior. Every year, the summer before school starts, colleges are always looking to fill spots. Right. Because guys, at least the big schools, because guys, they get drafted, they transfer, they're not eligible, you know, for whatever reason, there's spots that open up. And if you're confident in your abilities as a human and as a player, and you are okay with walking on somewhere to try to earn a spot, do it.
That's another myth too, though, with the whole committing thing. Can we kind of break that down a little bit? Because that's, you know, guys committing as girl, and some girls do committing as sophomores and some freshmen. It's like, what's ridiculous? This is ridiculous.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I just think it's ridiculous.
Our coaches don't like it. They have to do it, or someone else will. Right. You know, if you don't say, hey, you know, we'd like to have a verbal commitment from you, you know, you're going to graduate in 2 years. If I don't get that, then, you know, the University of Florida will get it, you know? Right. And so they've tried to, you know, put some rules in place, and we'll see how those pan out, where, you know, you're not allowed to talk to the players until a little bit later now. When we were going, you know, I signed, you know, we weren't recruited until the fall of our senior year, and you either signed in the fall, like in November signing period, or we signed in the spring. But that was it. Like, you didn't have verbal. We didn't get letters, I don't think, until we were seniors. You know, where they could start communicating with you, and then all of a sudden that just went, you know, by the wayside. So nobody likes it, but it's it's kind of what it is, and it lays a groundwork and a foundation. And so many players. I just heard of a player who is a sophomore in high school, and he's a good athlete. And he's a sophomore that's 17 years old, okay, instead of 15. And he's strong and he's fast, but he's probably not going to get better physically. I mean, unless he works. But he committed to a Power 5 school, in a very big conference. Like I said, as a sophomore, and his ceiling, I don't know where his ceiling is. That's the problem. Like, I see him and I'm like, that kid's mature. Like, he's not going to be more than 5'10", and he's not going to be able to be a left fielder in that conference. Like, can he run good enough? Like, he's big and strong and he overmatches the competition right now, but it's not going to play. So that player probably, I'm not going to say, I'm pulling against or rooting against somebody, but I don't think that player is going to step foot on campus in 2 years. I think they're going to see him and be like, you didn't get better. Right. They want him to get better. They want him to get faster and stronger. Maybe he's lazy because he's overmatching the competition. Or maybe he's like Bryce Harper and he's a freak and he's like, you know what? I'm going to get big. I'm going to get faster. I'm not going to grow anymore, but at least I can get stronger and faster, and I'm going to work my tail off. But I would say for every guy that works his tail off to get bigger and stronger and faster, I've seen so many sophomores that just kind of cruise once they give their verbal commitment. And then all of a sudden, push comes to shove. And those schools are like, you know what? You didn't do anything to get better. Like, you're not any better now than we're going to look for somebody else.
Yeah. So it's really, it's not really a commitment. It's more, I don't know what it is.
No, you can say, I decommitted from this school.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know where I'm gonna. I mean, you see it every day,
right?
I
don't think it phases coaches either,
right?
I always go back to that story of when Dustin Pedroia walked into Pat Murphy's office at Arizona State and said to him, "I'm here, your starting shortstop coach." And Pat Murphy looked at him and goes, "Who are you again?"
Yeah.
So again, there's with the bigger schools, you can commit all you want when you're in 7th grade, but I mean, years
and sometimes those are not misses. There's a girl that are in softball. She's not even on campus yet, I don't think. I'm trying to remember. She was like the first 8th grader, like University of Florida softball, committed, and I worked with a player. That girl's got to be close to getting to college, but I worked with a player. She plays at Florida State now, and she played summer ball with this girl.
Yeah,
and this girl was like a junior, at the time in high school, and this stud pitcher that was an 8th grader, a freshman, and she's like, no, she's that good. Like,
she is that good. Okay,
she's that good. Like, it was we're not going to measure. She was a pitcher, and she already threw, 67 miles an hour, right? Which is like SEC average, and she was 14.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So they're like, okay, we'll take a flyer on this one, and they got her to commit. And softball's different because there's no draft. So
yeah. Also, you mentioned letters. Do players get letters anymore, or how do coaches reach out? Here's another myth that we have to bust, like Mythbusters on today's show. How do they reach out? Via social media? I mean, you mean players can showcase themselves on their Instagram and now their TikTok and what else is on Twitter? What else?
Yeah.
Snapchat.
I think there are still letters, for sure. And there's certain times, that colleges can reach out. So you could call the college, if I was interested in you, Jim, you could call me and I could pick up the phone and talk to you, but I couldn't proactively call you during certain times.
And that is said in a letter, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are there violations now though, if you reach out on social media as a coach and say, hey, I like your stuff? It's gotta be, right?
Yeah. Like, you can but you can't.
So you
can watch, but you can't say, hey, give me a buzz, or you can't, there'll be sanctions for that.
Yeah.
So usually it's through club coaches.
Okay.
So through travel ball coaches. So they know, they play for this travel ball team. I'm going to contact that travel ball coach. I'm going to find a little bit more about this player. I'm interested in them. Can you give me their phone number? And then when I'm allowed to call recruits, which just happened like in softball, I think a month ago or so. They could actually call recruits that are juniors.
Yeah.
There was a certain date, and then they can pick up the phone and call, but they'll get all, they'll get their information typically from their coaches. Sometimes high school coaches. That's how it used to be. Now it's more, travel ball coaches.
Right. That's why it's so important to go back and listen to our travel ball episode.
Yep.
Figuring out the right travel ball coach that could help you get to college.
That's it.
Also, another thing I want to add too, I saw this, Paul Goldschmidt was never ranked in high school when he was going off to college. So, and he's now a major league star. So I don't think players should get too wrapped up. Keep in mind, Jimmy Clausen was the number one quarterback in 2007, heading off to Notre Dame. He was committed as a sophomore. He was okay in college, right? He was pretty good. Went to the Panthers, and then that's about it. He wasn't very good at the NFL level. So your body's changing. You're growing mentally, physically. There's so many things that could change. People get wrapped up in all this recruiting stuff. I'm being recruited by this school, recruited by this school. In the end, your time to grow is actually when you get on campus between 18 and 24. That's the time to grow physically and mentally. If you do want to try to play, if you can, if you're talented enough, play at the next level. Henry Davis, there you go, by the way. Another example.
And the problem is you got to get there, right? I mean, there was a pitcher, was it the Rays pitcher on game one? Anyways, a pitcher that went to like a D3 school, and he was, 150 pounds when he got on campus. And anyway, he ended up growing like 4 inches and putting on like 50 pounds or something like that. And he got, totally dominated Division III or whatever he was at, got drafted, worked his way through the minor leagues, and, was a big leaguer. So you never know. You have to see as a recruiter or, as a scout or an evaluator, there's certain things you can see. Wow, this guy, he moves the right way, like the ball really comes out of his hand. I know it's not jumping yet, but he's 145 pounds and he's 16. Like, he's just young. He's not hairy yet. Like, I feel like there's a lot of growth. There's a really high ceiling. And some people can see that, and some people, are just like, oh, if you just look, if that kid goes to a showcase and they're like, oh, he throws, 80 miles an hour, even though he's 150 pounds, and he runs a 7.4 and his exit velocity is, blah, blah, blah. But boy, he sure is smooth. Yeah. Like, well, maybe that smoothness, maybe he'll grow into that athleticism. Maybe he won't, but maybe he will. And so those are the guys that go to college late. They sign their senior year, like when most people do. They don't commit until then, or they go to a junior college or a smaller school and they end up doing really well. So listen, if you work hard and you can play and you're good and you just keep playing, it doesn't matter where it is. It could be at a D2 in the middle of Nebraska. If you dominate there, somebody will see you. Yeah. If you don't dominate there, no one will see you. If you don't dominate at Mississippi State, nobody cares either. Right. So you have to, you have to be the main dude when you get out there. If you want to go to the next level, whatever that is, you got to be better than everybody else. And that can come from within, and that can come from hard work and dedication. It can come from talent. Or you can have people that are really talented that just don't have the work ethic. So like Bryce Harper, that sounds like that's all he ever wanted to do. Yeah. Right. And nothing was good. He wasn't going to go to a party. He wasn't going to, go to the football games. He was going to go hit. He was going to go run. He was going to go work out. And I think it worked out for him. Doesn't work out for everyone, but you gotta work. If you don't work, it doesn't work. Final myth I want to touch on: how much nowadays do coaches look at those showcase type statistics, exit velocity? We'll call them StatCast statistics. How much do they look? They look at them a lot. Yeah, they look at them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they look at. Unfortunately, if someone doesn't hit the ball hard enough, because if you hit a ground ball but you hit it really hard, it's a hit. If you hit a ground ball and you hit it 82 miles an hour, it's an out. If you hit it 100 miles an hour, it has a 50% chance more going through. So look at the big leaguers; they're so massive. Yeah, seriously. Like my dad was over, we were talking tonight, where my daughter, my little one, went to the doctor and they're like, oh, you might be 5'8", And so she was telling my dad, hey, Papa, I might be 5'8". He's like, oh, great. He's like, and he rattled off like, I can't remember who the players were. He rattled off like 4 Hall of Famers that were 5'8".
Yeah.
And I'm like, those guys aren't even in the league anymore. Like these shortstops are 220 pounds, or 230 pounds. Like,
and look at Wander Franco. I mean, that guy's huge.
They just, I don't know, they just overmatch the ball, and the field and the stadium because they're so big and strong that you don't have to be as, Chris Taylor, like that's a normal sized guy. Right?
Yeah, but he's so strong though. He's so wiry. He's stronger than
he's wiry, but he's not like
most of the male population.
Yeah.
No, the White Sox have a lot of jack guys, don't they? Jan Moncada, Luis Robert, by the way, he looks like a linebacker and he's the center fielder.
I was just gonna say they do. They look like a football, an NFL football team.
Right. They're huge. I mean, even Tim Anderson is pretty big.
Yeah.
Lower body. Yeah. Jack Leiter too. His thighs are tree trunks, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, but it's true. So they're looking at guys, if you're a pitcher and you're throwing 86 at a showcase.
Yeah.
And you can play somewhere.
Right.
But they're going to look for a guy. Oh, this guy doesn't have very good command, but he's really big and he throws 90 and he's 16. Okay, when he's 18, maybe he throws 93. When he's 20, maybe he throws 95, or maybe he blows out his arm. Like, who knows? But they feel like they can work with that. Big time colleges are full of, we can make that better if we need to.
Right.
Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. So you have a lot of these people that are just freakishly good athletes that may not be great ball players, and maybe they come into their own and they do become, but for the most part they're going to take that person that hits the ball harder, runs a little bit faster, even though that player may have gone 1 for 10 in the showcase versus somebody of average size that went 5 for 10, but they didn't, their vertical wasn't as high. They didn't throw as hard from the outfield. They didn't run they don't look as good in the uniform. And that sucks because for me, you can only watch guys go 1 for 10 so many times in the showcase. I remember, who was the coach? Oh, he was an assistant at Oregon for Coach Horton. I mean, maybe it was Waz, who's the head coach at Oregon now. I don't remember who it was, but I had a player that was a great athlete here in Colorado. This is years ago, probably 10 years ago. And he was fat. He was a wide receiver for a really good football team. And he was fast and he was strong and he hit the ball so hard and he looked pretty good and athletic. And so I remember talking to him and he was talking to the coach. Anyway, and he was like, I've seen him probably 15 at bats and he's only hit 1 double, and he was fooled and hooked it down the line. He's like, he looks so great in the pregame and taking fly balls and in the showcase part of it. He's like, but when we got into the game, I haven't seen him square up enough balls. I haven't seen him hit up a line drive up the middle once in 15, 20 at bats.
And you know what he sounds like? He sounds like a showcase player. And next week,
there's so many.
We'll be talking about avoiding becoming a showcase player. That's next week. And then, of course, overrated, underrated. And then it's time for a mechanical breakdown series of a certain podcast co-host. Well, yeah, but you're my co-host, so it's interchangeable.
Is it?
I think so. I guess.
Anyway, that kid ended.
You don't want to, I'm guessing, but
he ended up going to a D1 school.
Yeah,
that was a little bit smaller conference.
Yeah,
and didn't play.
What do you had another myth that I cut you off with earlier? Do you have another one, or did we touch on everyone?
I think the one was you have to if you don't commit by the time you're a sophomore or junior, then you're not going to play college. That's the worst one because you are.
Right. It puts a lot more pressure on kids. Now it's got to be worse with social media. And
one of the not myths is don't showcase unless you're showcaseable. So if you're a sophomore and you're a 125-pound second baseman,
Yeah.
Don't go there because all of a sudden all your numbers and stats are going to be there.
Right.
Wait till you're a junior, wait till you're a senior when you're bigger and stronger and you showcase well. So don't jump into those when you're physically not ready yet. Like me, I wasn't ready until much later to show my skills. So I was probably 17 or 18. If I would have done it at 14, they would have laughed me off the field.
Yeah.
They still laugh me off the field.
Let's they laugh us off the podcast, don't they?
That's true. They did that like 10 minutes ago.
Let's get to our listener question here. This comes to us from Pete from Iowa, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Pete's from the beautiful state of Iowa writes, "Hi, Jim and Jake. It's my first time writing into the show. I enjoy watching on YouTube. Jake's explanations of things pertaining to hitting are great, and YouTube provides a great visual. My question has to do with Nelson Cruz. It's kind of broad. What does Jake think of Nelson Cruz as a hitter and his ability to still be as productive as he is at age 41? Wow, he's 41. I did not know that. I thought he was 40 or 39. But anyway, Pete continues. Will we start seeing a trend of players playing deeper into their 30s and into their 40s? Or is Cruz a rare breed of talent? Great show. Thank you again. And that is from Pete from Iowa, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a DH,
which it might be coming to all of baseball soon.
Yeah, then there's a place for somebody that's older,
right?
That doesn't run well and the body hurts a little bit more. Watch him prepare. Nelson Cruz is a guy that hits the back of the cage off machines, off tee work. Actually, it's a lot of ground balls to the right side off tee work. I think I posted something on my Twitter page a year ago. It was like a MLB.com little segment of how he works. And it's so many of the drills that I have in my online academy where, you're just using one hand and you're not using your body much. And you're just trying to control the bat head and learn how to use your body the right way. He's just a very hardworking, dedicated to his craft kind of guy. Like he's a hitter. And he's simplistic in his approach in that he doesn't have a big leg kick. He doesn't have a lot of moving parts. He's big and he's strong. So he doesn't have to have as many moving parts to build momentum. But he's got great hands. He's got great hands and he has great control of the bat. And when you match that with size and vision and experience and wisdom, as you would put it, right? He's been in the league for a long time. He's seen a lot of pitches. He's faced a lot of different pitchers. He knows what guys are trying to do to him. Yeah, you're going to be successful for a long time. But I don't know if we're going to see a lot of people that play that long, unless it's somebody like, you saw Pujols get old real fast.
Yeah.
Pujols would have been in that DH kind of role. Like maybe you could run him out there, but not to the extent that Cruz is later in his career. However, the whole Pujols, how old is he really, plays into that,
What about, I got a guy.
He might be 2 or 3 years.
I do have a guy that may play into his 40s. Two guys may play into their 40s.
JD Martinez.
No. Bryce Harper. No, you're shaking your head no.
Now he's too injury prone.
Juan Soto.
He's not even 20 yet.
Right. He's got a long way to go.
30 years from now, isn't it?
He's got a long way to go.
He's got a long way to go. Yeah, I think it doesn't happen because if you've played that long, like you're at least 35, you've made so much money in this game.
Yeah. Well, Pujols has made so much money and he's still going, and I guarantee he plays next year. Guarantee.
Yeah, I don't get it, but
I hope Bo Bichette plays till he's like 45 too. Just because you said he's during his mechanical breakdown series, he's going to stop at 35. So I'm going to add 10 years. I hope he plays till he's 45. Is that what
I said Bichette's done at 35.
You did, yeah, because he's going to make a lot of money.
He's going to make money, but his body won't hold out.
You don't think so?
No. Too much energy, violence in that swing. His back. It's like Tiger Woods.
So what do you think what's going to hurt him the most? Obliques, his back, lower back, his knees.
Yeah, his back and his left knee.
Mark the date and the time. By that time, when he's 35, we'll be on episode 1500.
Oh God. Let's hope not. Let's hope you have your own show on ESPN by then, Jim.
Yeah, right. Or maybe I'll be a scout or something.
Philly Talk Radio.
I'll be a scout or something.
Oh, you would be like
for an organization by that time.
Yeah, you would be the scouting master.
Are you getting tired?
You would be the assistant general manager of master scouting.
I was going to say the assistant general manager of St. Mary's School, deaf and blind.
By then there'll be players on the moon.
I know,
because the Earth will be gone.
Right. They've been saying that for 35 years too.
Yeah.
Well, that's like 12 years away too. No, I'm sorry.
Maybe Mars.
It's like 13 years away. But it was like 22, 23. It's not that far off. I mean, you're talking like, when my grandkids are around, if I have such, or if you have such, right? You have grandkids. So next week, avoiding becoming a showcase player. That's our topic next week at hand. Okay. All right. Everybody good with that? I hope
you know how not to become a showcase player?
Yeah. What's that?
Show up at the lab with all your skills.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll crank those machines up and make it nasty so that you do perform in the game portion of the showcases and not just the skills portion.
And what other gadgetry do you have at the lab?
We have coaches that just, we sound like New York fans,
right?
Yelling at Red Sox players. That's what we sound like. So players, when they get into showcases, there's no pressure because we've just beat them down so much.
Yeah.
Okay. No, we just prepare them. We don't sugarcoat anything. We do. I have some eye-hand coordination drills, like where I'll get them going, and then we'll throw in, different verbals, and we'll start talking to them when they're concentrating in hopes that they can blank that stuff out.
Yeah.
That's important. Like you can't be distracted, but that's a whole other episode.
What topic would that be?
Don't be distracted by outside influences.
I think that actually is a episode further down the line.
Is it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Again, it comes back to one of my favorite movies, For Love of the Game.
Is that one of your favorite movies? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one.
Not one of my favorites, but nevertheless.
It's more of a love story, but
Yeah, right. I didn't.
I mean, anytime you got Shake and Bake as a catcher,
I didn't take you
Riley
for
the catcher.
I didn't take you for a love story type movie guy, but
yeah, anything with Costner, I'm in.
Even
Yellowstone.
Field of Dreams, right?
The best.
Yeah. Pete from Iowa, thank you very much. I wonder if Pete from Iowa lives near.
Yeah, wonder if he's been there. Wonder if he's at the game.
At Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. Thank you for listening, watching on YouTube. Subscribe. We do appreciate it. And we will talk to you next week. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Jerry Callow.